Appamada and its programs are supported by your generosity, and your generosity and support makes such a difference. You can find a link for contributions on the website at appamada.org. Thank you.
Prepare for Dharma talk.
So good to see you all. I want to talk about the Bodhisattva's vow. And this is something, as you probably know, we've been reading during Zazen every morning now during this practice period. And it's really been working on me, as I think it should. And I've been really curious about how to work with it, what it says. And I think has really struck me about the words in particular are how it says, all is the mysterious truth of the awakened life, the never failing manifestation of the mysterious truth of the awakened life. None can be other than the marvelous revelation of its glorious light. This realization made our ancestors and teachers extend tender care with respectful hearts, even to such beings as birds and beasts. This teaches us that all is the merciful incarnation of the awakened one. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. Who can be ungrateful or not respectful even to senseless things, not to speak of humans? Even though they may be fools, be warm and compassionate towards them. And if by any chance they should turn against us, become sworn enemies and persecute us, we should sincerely bow down with humble language in the reverent understanding, they are the merciful messengers of the awakened one, who use devices to emancipate us from blind tendencies produced and accumulated upon ourselves by our own egoistic delusion and attachment through countless cycles of space and time. And every time I chant that, I don't know if y'all have this experience, but sometimes when I read the chants in the morning, I kind of have this thing where I'm trying to read the chant and I'm also like thinking about it at the same time, and it kind of like trips me up, and I have to, what's that? A little louder. Can y'all hear me okay on the, okay. I'll try to enunciate it better. So I've been having that experience with this chant in particular, or this teaching. And I've been wondering, who are these fools that it's talking about? And how are we supposed to work with them? Because I think it's one thing, to say the chant and talk about, being with life as it is. And it's another thing to actually like work with it in our daily life, right? I'm sure we may be familiar with that experience. And I guess I've been realizing in my own life, as I've been thinking about this particular vow, how I'm kind of becoming more aware of how I work with these fools in my life and what they are, and the disparity between like, am I actually like bowing down before them in the way that this vow is asking us to do it, or am I instead trying to push them away and look for things to be more ideal? I guess is kind of the schism I'm realizing. And so along with us studying this vow, I'm in a program with Naropa right now, in a graduate program, and one of the things we've been studying is a concept called Shenpa. Have y'all heard of Shenpa? Are you familiar? It was new to me, but it's from the Tibetan tradition, and Shenpa is but it's a Tibetan word for attachment or being hooked, and it's kind of it's hard to translate these things sometimes, right? But it's attachment, it's being hooked, and it's also the reflexive pattern of moving away from the present moment. being hooked by what we associate with comfort instead of discomfort. So it's both the thing that hooks you or triggers you, but it's also the movement away from that thing. And in the Tibetan tradition, it's very colorful, and they have all these demons and things that are really kind of iconic and evocative. And the Shenpa demon is covered in hooks and flames. And that's the demon of Shenpa, or I don't know if they call it a demon, but that's what it looks like to me. And so it's so Pema Chodron talks about this quite a bit. She's from the Shambhala tradition and Tibetan tradition, and she likens this to this being like poison ivy. It's both the poison ivy and the desire to itch, scratch. And really, I feel like, I've been kind of holding these two concepts, the Bodhisattva's vow and this concept of Shenpa in my mind, and seeing this. I think they're kind of related to me, because when I feel hooked by things or people, the things in my mind, concepts or like the inner critic or whatever I get hooked by, I can feel myself contract, and I'm moving away from life as it is, and from seeing these, fools or whatever obstacles as actual tools for my own awakening, which I think is what they could be. We could see them that way. So usually, like I said, to me, it feels like a contraction and a pulling back. Someone says something, and I can kind of, when I'm aware of it, I kind of feel myself pull back and have that initial kind of reaction, pulling away from life as it is, like I said. And usually we react to these kinds of things in one of three ways. So either pleasure seeking, moving to a place of what we consider comfort instead of the discomfort, aggression, or numbing out or dissociating. I don't know if y'all can relate to those three behaviors. And I was, so that, again, this is how Pema Chodron characterizes the way we typically move away from things. And I saw a parallel between what we avow during our chants in the morning also. Twisted karmas of pleasure seeking, I could call the twisted karma of greed. Or aggression, I could call the twisted karma of hate. Or numbing out, I could call the twisted karma of delusion. So really it's, it's acting in one of those ways, which is what we do, right? That's what we're working with. That's why we avow it every morning, because we're saying, this is what I'm working with. And Shenpa really has, I think, kind of an addictive quality to it. And with that, there's a hangover quality associated with it as well. It's like when something triggers you, a person triggers you, and you have that kind of like pulling back reaction, and then you lash out, or you say something you maybe didn't mean. Now there's like fallout, right? And there's always a consequence to acting in that way. Whether it's minor or major, there's always some kind of consequence, it seems like. So, and again, when I started learning about this concept of Shenpa, I was almost kind of disoriented by it, because I could see like where, so like my whole life is covered in this stuff, like everything feels like I'm acting in this way. So for me, it's been a real practice of really like slowing down and being like, oh, there's one. Yeah, I do feel hooked right now. And how am I gonna choose to deal with this? And then sometimes in those times, I can feel myself just acting out anyway. It's like, that's why I think there's kind of this like, it's a conditioned pattern, something that's part of the default mode network of our minds sometimes. So how can we, if these are truly messengers of the awakened one, if we believe that, how can we work with them? How can we actually work with them? Because if we keep, finding ways to beat them back, beat them away, and treat them like things that we don't want in our life, we're missing opportunities, I feel. And they're going to keep coming back. This is hard to do because these are things that have become sworn enemies to us and vow to persecute us, right? Is how it feels. So I guess what I wanted to talk about, what I wanted to offer was like, how can we see these kinds of occurrences as, people and thoughts and things as not as obstacles, but as opportunities for awakening. And so Pema Chodron, as I said, she really talks about this a lot. She offers a technique. I really like techniques that I take off the cushion, because I feel like I have the experience of my practice on the cushion, and then off the cushion, I need some help. So for me, I really rely on these kinds of techniques. So that's what I wanted to share with y'all. So a couple I'll offer. Pema talks about the 4 R's. And so the 4 R's, I'll go through this, and then what I wanted to do was actually, I'll talk about it, and then we'll go through a chance to kind of try it out, and then we'll talk about it, see what you think about this. So the 4 R's, so first, recognize that you're hooked, and that's really the most important one, and that's like the foundation. So something happened, and you're like, uh-oh, like, something's got me. And again, for me, it might be different in your body, and it might be different based on what's happening. For me, it's like that. I can feel myself contract, and I'm like, something needs to happen. Recognize you're hooked, and then ideally you can bring some humor to it and be like, oh, there's that, right? There's that thing that I do in this particular instance, or with this person, or whatever. If you can see the Shenpa at this first R of recognize, just as you're starting to close down, when you can feel the tightening, there's a possibility of catching the urge to do the habitual thing. So now you have a little possibility and a little choice of what you want to do with it. The second R is refrain. So don't do the thing you normally would do, dissociating, lashing out, whatever it is. Lean in, abide with it, feel it, get curious with it, and stay awake to it. This is still the second R of refrain. Refrain from causing harm, which is a part of our vows, right? Relax is the third R. Stop fighting with it. So at this point, you said, I'm hooked. I'm not gonna do the thing, and I'm gonna relax into it. I'm gonna stop pushing it away, and I'm gonna allow myself to actually be present to the situation as it is. And the fourth R is resolve. Go on with your life and resolve to do this again the next time. So it's recognize, refrain, relax, and then resolve. And it's this is a practice. This is a practice. We're not going to get this right every time. We're still going to act out. We're still going to do our things. But this could be a tool to help us, I hope, be able to address this dynamic, I guess, or just how things are. So we'll come back to the 4 R's here in a minute, but then I just wanted to touch on another tool that I think is really helpful, which is RAIN, which is Tara Brach's teaching. I'm familiar with RAIN. And her acronym, I also love acronyms. Her acronym is RAIN, which is recognize, allow, investigate, nurture. So it's very similar. Recognize something's happened, allow for it, investigate it, get curious, and then nurture, which is apply compassion, basically. And I kind of like the fourth R of resolve, the way they say, go on with your life. And so I kind of changed the acronym a little bit into RAIL. So recognize, allow, investigate, let that shit go, and then resolve keep going. And I was thinking recognize, allow, investigate, resolve, but that was rare, and I thought that was not as we want this to be common, not rare. So so I guess the other things I wanted to say about this, and again, I want to give us an opportunity to try this together and talk about it, hopefully, because this is a practice, is that I think the more we're willing to practice the way over time, we can find the prajna, we can find the wisdom in these obstacles, these fools, these things that we have, this Shenpa that we have to work with. And I know for me, when I can, so I'm also a Hakomi practitioner and a student of Hakomi, and this is very aligned with the teachings of Hakomi as well, is, you know, when you can go deeper and deeper into your actual felt experience and your bodily experience, there's wisdom there, right? It's a gateway to the subconscious, the unconscious, and how to make these things conscious and learn from them. And the more, again, personally, I can see this Shenpa, this kind of caught feeling and this like a rising of energy as prajna, the more I feel open to it, the more I can work with it. And Chogyam Trungpa talks about it in this way in his book, The Teacup and the Skull Cup. He says, prajna and energy are the same thing. It's actually equated, it's the same thing. So prajna is big wisdom, like prajna paramita. The things that we as bodhisattvas rely upon is prajna. So that I feel is something that I can get behind leaning into. Yeah, just making sense so far. So I wanted to invite us to try this out right now together, and maybe just let's get mindful together and just kind of turn in. You know, we don't have to ring any bells or anything, but just kind of just like tune into your own experience for a minute, and then see if you can access something from your recent past that feels like Shenpa to you. This might be something that you're working with, maybe you're currently experiencing, or something that you've recently encountered that feels like this quality of Shenpa, this quality of getting hooked and wanting to act, to move away from it. And then once you feel in touch with that, notice what qualities it might have for you. Is there a feeling in your body? Is there something moving? Is there a discomfort? Is there a pushing away, or some way you can feel in your body this quality? And once if you feel in touch with this sensation, what does it feel like to refrain from getting hooked by it? Maybe that means taking some breaths and breathing into it. Maybe take some deepening breaths and see how can I not move compulsively from this feeling? And what is that like? How do you notice the sensation in your body and your relationship to this thing that might sometimes make you feel hooked? And then see what it feels like to just let it go. Maybe take a breath and let it out in the out breath. Just let this go for now. And then with that, resolve that maybe there's some wisdom here. There might be another way we can work with this. And when you feel ready, you can come back to the room. Notice how you feel after deepening around this. Now I'm really curious what that was like for you. What do you think about this possible tool and you know, our this vow that we're saying now every day during Zazen and turning towards things that might be difficult as something that's actually possibly there to help us be emancipated.
This is really great. I mean, it's the essential part of our practice, right? Just change it. But it's to me, the hardest part is once you realize that you're in a moment, you know, and then trying to turn it off or so there's a thing about switching into a bigger space or something, and I think that it's that's the tricky part, is being able to do that when you're already triggered. So I was kind of playing with it. It was possible to do it, but I wasn't in the situation. I was just had it in my mind.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just practicing that.
Yeah.
Just practicing, you know, switching.
Yeah. And the cushion is the best place to practice, I think. You know, because it's like like for me, I was thinking about what I wanted to offer today, and sitting this morning, I was, you know, things were coming up, and I was like really able to like, I could feel, you know, like just random thoughts or whatever, and like I could feel like, oh, there's a little contraction, and because I'm sitting, I'm not causing any harm because I'm not doing anything, which is one of my favorite parts about Zazen is I'm not creating
You have to be quiet.
Yeah, you know, like I can't do the thing. So, you know, it's like that for me is like this is a laboratory to practice with this. And, you know, for me I can really feel like, okay, I'm gonna breathe into it, and now I feel myself settling, and then I get a little curiosity on board, and I'm like, is there something there? Like, is there now a prajna moving through that I'm not maybe aware of yet? Or anyway, it's a lifelong exploration.
Thank you.
I love the idea of a demon or a deity of having. I mean, I could see it when you described it with hooks and very fierce. And,
yeah.
And so I had the experience of having the experience that created that feeling and that deity showing up and like coming toward me and even grabbing me. And the idea to go back to like Thich Nhat Hanh or Shunryu Suzuki to say, have tea with this, you know, be compassionate, and just what the vow says, to bow down and say thank you, you're here, thank you for this teaching. And that felt a real bodily shift. And then to let it go, and to resolve, I had the feeling or the thought of the deity kind of going off smaller and smaller into the distance and bowing again and saying, I'll see you again. Next time, be welcomed again. Next time,
Keep that teapot warm.
Exactly. It was really cool. Maybe I should be at the Vajrayana.
Thank you. Jessica.
I really, really enjoyed this as well, and it felt super useful even just going through it all together. And something that has been really supportive for me this morning is sitting here with all of you, first of all, and then the larger realization of the support that we have that's out there. As John Eric and I were walking here this morning, there were these migrating birds going overhead, and it was a lot of them, and they were big white birds, and the way the sun was gleaming on them, they looked golden. And at the moment I had this realization or this feeling of support from all kinds of places. And so I think that's the part about the nurture step, or the letting it go, or the resolve, to me, that I can't do that on my own. I can't do it on my own. I've tried and tried. I know I can't. But there is help, and there is support, and being with all of you all over the world in all the various time zones, supporting each other on this path, that feels really helpful to me. Thank you for bringing this morning.
Thank you.
Yeah, where I got stuck, probably other people too, is with the resolve.
Huh.
And I thought, like, now as a circle, and that took me right back to the beginning. So I can see myself going in this loop. So yeah, I'd like you to tell me exactly how to do
it. Getting stuck is a part of it too. Yeah.
And then I guess recognizing that.
Yeah, and you made this motion, right? So it's like, yeah, this is the cycle, this is the wheel. Exactly that.
You got hands.
Oh. Maria.
Hi. Yeah, it's just as Jessica was speaking, it just reminded me of, the murmurations, and that when I get triggered or caught up, it's like I'm a bird that flies away from that murmuration, and there's all of them over there, and there's me. There's like a real feeling of separation and on my own. And the tendency can be to just stay in it on my own to try and work it out, when actually flying back to the murmuration and joining connection again, or finding a teacher or finding someone to kind of work with that knot, because it can really feel like quite a tight knot, can't it? And I think sometimes if it's quite a big kind of trigger, it's like it stays there, and I keep revisiting it and keep coming back. And what is it wanting to tell me? What is it that I'm doing? What is it that I need? What's going on here? And like you said, in sitting, I'll sit and I'll see all these different parts of me come up that kind of feel insecure or unsettled, or just need some reassurance, or need some guidance, or and it's that kind of, the urge is to disconnect, and it's disconnecting from self as well, and we kind of separate into some place that kind of takes its grip on its position. And it's kind of really kind of just kind of, well, that's all right, it's okay, we've got this, we don't need to do this. And I think I always remind myself that all our parts have good intention. They all have good intention, they're all protecting, they all feel like they need to do what they're doing. And it's kind of, yeah, just really sitting and creating a space to really see what is that, what's it doing, what does it feel like it needs to do, and what can Maria, you know, kind of say to this part that, you know, it doesn't need to do that, it's okay, we've got this, or just sit beside it, or get somebody else to sit beside you with it, and just unfold it rather than wait till it's past. My tendency is wait till it's all unraveled and past, then I'll tell somebody about it, what's just happened.
Yeah.
Laurie knows that. You know, it's connecting with it that I think is really rich. If we can really connect in it when it's there, that's so rich, you know. But also if we can't, to just really give it space and kindness and tenderness, because these hooks can kind of spin us off, because I notice my thoughts can spin off as well in all kinds of beliefs and ideas, and you know, that aren't true, you know, they're not, they feel so, like Tara Brach would say, you know, real but not true. You know, but we get drawn into it and we believe it, and then we think we've got to hide it, and then we get shame and embarrassment, and you know, we don't want to tell anybody that this is what's going on, you know, we want to keep it, you know. And yeah, so it's really connecting, and then they often say, yeah, me too, you know, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, John Eric, thank you.
You know, I love that you and Jessica are bringing in this, like, we can't do this alone. There's, you know, this relational quality to this, which is what we're doing here at Appamada, is, you know, those hooks are so alluring. It's, you know, that's why I said they have this kind of addictive quality to it. And so to be able to share this with people and say like, man, I'm hooked right now, you know, or whatever, it's like, I need some help pulling this out, I think is really powerful. And to bring us back to Pema Chodron, because she talks about this so much. She says that at Gampo Abbey, where she is, they look forward to experiencing Shenpa together. It's like a part of their like active practice, and they're like, ooh, I got a thing going on. You know, like to them, they, you know, at least the way she writes about it, they see it as kind of an opportunity.
There's a tendency to want to keep hold of it because it feels right and real and true, and it's like, oh, you know, and so there's a resistance as well, and it's kind of being with that resistance as well, isn't it? And kind of allowing that to soften, and it's only with sitting and being with that it will ever soften, you know, otherwise it just kind of stays as it is. Anyway, I'll let Ellen come down now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ellen?
You need to unmute, Ellen.
I said, thank you, John Eric. It was really useful, and I appreciate that. I agree that the first step is the most important, catching it before you've already done something you wish you hadn't done. And as far as resolve goes, I'm with everybody else. Norman Fisher talks about the last step being repeat. Be prepared to repeat because these things happen again and again. And so anyway, thank you for the topic.
Thank you, Ellen. Genevieve, I think you're next.
Hi. Thank you so much for this talk. I absolutely loved it. I have listened to Pema Chodron talk about Shenpa before. I find it a really powerful way of exploring these things. And I thought you explicated these things beautifully. I'm in the middle of an ongoing struggle. My heart is just full of sorrow, and my reaction is usually to curl up in bed with a book and a cat, so I noticed a couple of things about this exercise. The first one was that I was already trying to work with myself on this during my sit today, but all I could really do was, you know, express love toward this part of myself, but I didn't feel anything really shift. Whereas when we did the exercise, I felt shifts happening. And so I really want to echo this critical aspect of this process of being relationality, and just to admit that I still need that a lot. And I'm about to start practicing Hakomi with Gabriela in Mexico City. So I'm really looking forward to that process, and to having a group that I regularly practice Hakomi with. It's totally new to me. But the other thing is that while this was happening, I had this really weird experience of a paradox, in that I felt that at a certain moment I went much closer. So I became much closer to it, and it became much farther away from me. It was such a viscerally strange experience to go closer and zoom out at the same time. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeanette.
And we have Carolyn next.
Carolyn, then.
Thanks, John Eric. I also needed this too. And the reminder of Shenpa has been so useful. One of the things that I'm noticing in this practice period and in actually doing that exercise, I use RAIN all the time, but I noticed as I'm okay in recognizing, I'm okay in the investigating, but with this practice period and the intention of the Bodhisattva vow, where I feel like I keep getting stuck, is I keep getting back to this core belief I've had since I was really little, that I'm not enough. And so what comes up is, oh, there you go again, you got hooked. There you go again, you used anger and you actually acted from the anger. There you go again, you dissociated. And so it's this shame response. And so it's weird. I'm a little terrified of this practice period because it's making me face my core belief over and over and over again. And then the shame that arises. And I have a hard time sitting with the shame and knowing, like, I can't just resolve and let it go. It's just, it hurts. So I mean, I was putting my hand on my heart to say, God, it's shame. And I have a resource that comes to me, but just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, thank you, Carolyn. I noticed you doing that. And I think to be successful with this practice, so to speak, it's not a demand, right? It's not like you have to go through the whole cycle and make it through successfully to be doing this practice. Like even just that first R of like recognizing, I think is like a huge step, because think of how much of this is done unconsciously and just like reflexively, right? So to say like, oh wow, there I did it again, that might be enough. And like Genevieve said, like sometimes you need to curl up with your cat and just kind of, take it easy for a little while. Like you can titrate this. It's not a demand that you do it a certain way. It's just here's a way to deepen into this and maybe need to come out, or, it's just like a map of exploring these things more so than, a set formula is how I think of it. Is that helpful?
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
Also, if the shame comes up, that's not something that one can really deal with alone. Usually it's a lot easier if you've got your bestie who you can call and talk about it, talk about the shame, and be with that, be kind with that, and caring with that. But that's a lot of times that's a sticking point, getting caught in the shame by yourself, because it's hard to get out of. If you can bring another close person in, it makes a big difference to get through it. Mm-hmm. Just adding that in from Benny Brown.
Thanks, Lori. Yeah, and John Eric.
I think it was Kshish and then Rosemary.
Oh boy. So I spend a lot of my time thinking about the banality of evil and how some of the worst things that people have done is out of, I would say, a kind of cowardice to speak up. And it seems like there's a very potentially delicate line between restraint and cowardice. And I love what you said about this needing to get in touch with an embodied sense. And so I guess my question, John Eric, is how can we tell the difference? What is the embodied difference between thinking you're restraining and not wanting to do something harmful, so you're pulling back, versus doing that in order to avoid conflict and then getting straight onto the path of cowardice and evil?
Mm-hmm.
What is that? What is that difference in an embodied sense? What are we to look for?
Well, I think first it's that's an inquiry that feels personal to me. Like my embodied sense of what that feels like might be different than your embodied sense. But I think I really love the way you're pulling that out, like, because there's a difference between just saying, and that's why this vow captivated me so much, of like these things that are like vowing to harm me or whatever, like, should I just bow down towards them because that's what we're asked to do? And I don't feel like that's the right action, honestly. To me, this feels more like a practice of something happens, I get triggered, I go into my own experience, and then I move from an old conditioned place towards what I feel like is comfort. I'm missing life as it is, like what's actually happening, right? So if we can use this practice to get more clear of like what's actually happening, then maybe I can become more aware of what is right action. What is right action in this moment? It may not be to just go with this evil that's happening. It might be to do something. But in order to do something in a way that's actually compassionate, I have to have the information of what's actually happening and not be operating from my old patterns. How does that land? Thank you. Rosemary?
Hi. Hi, and thank you, John Eric. So valuable. I actually was in a situation on Monday where I absolutely acted out in a business situation. Something wasn't going the way I thought it should go, and I was trying to explain this, and I didn't feel understood in how I was explaining my concerns. And I got loud, whiny, frustrated, impatient, and all of those things. And I also happened to be on the bus when I was having this call, which never do a call like that when you're traveling. That kind of made it increase the tension. So what I loved about what you talked about is what I gathered from this whole experience was when I don't know things, but I don't know that I don't know them, but I think that I know them, and it comes to light that I don't, and I have a lot to learn. It's like a personal attack. It's ridiculous, but that's kind of how I respond. And so today, in thinking about, well, what was the trigger, to recognize that now and obviously I have so much to learn about a lot of things. I can look at why I respond that way, and see if I can step back. In the exercise that we did together, you asked how did we feel to let go of that, and what I do is I fight. I mean, that's how I've gotten through life, is fighting and feeling that I had to fight. Really sad to let go of a pattern that I believed in. I believe that this is how you get through. And so it was very, very helpful to get to that. And I think that can help me to anticipate, and also just keep asking myself as I go into situations, well, what do I not know? What do I have to learn here? And with the Rakusu, for example, there's a whole lot. And I've gone through some of those reactions in that process as well. Thank you so much for this, John Eric.
Thank you.